Check, check. 1, 2, check, check. Right, welcome aboard anyone that might be joining me for this impromptu stream. As the description suggests, you are joining me in the cruise phase at 38,000 feet above sea level in the iniBuilds Airbus A310 for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. As you can see, we're experiencing a bit of turbulence. It's been going on for the last few minutes, so I think we'll turn on the seatbelt sign to give everyone a little bit of a heads up. This is my first time in this part of the world in Flight Simulator. Well, actually in reality as well, or it would be in reality if I was actually flying. But yeah, I'm excited. We've got custom scenery awaiting us on our arrival for both the airport and some of the surrounds. It appears to be quite a, I guess you could say it was quite a remote airstrip or airfield out somewhere in the north of Iran, I think it's fair to say. It seems to be an airport that accepts more domestic flights than it does international flights. And by international, it seems to be limited to the GCC countries in particular. So we've taken the Iran Air A310, departed Dubai, and now well on our way to our destination. We are currently over Iran. As you can see, it's quite an interesting landscape, very rough and mountainous, which in all honesty I didn't expect. Though I guess it's quite normal for this part of the world. Let's see if the flight management system gives us a... Okay, so we are 315 miles from our destination. There's still a little ways to go. let's see. The weather is forecasted, or at least at the time of our departure, it was calm winds, clear skies, great visibility, cool temperature of about 18 degrees. I say cool, relatively speaking, of course. It can get quite hot in this part of the world, at least in summer. It is forecasted to become a little bit hazy. Later in the day, with winds picking up slightly, coming out from the west. That's the average sort of forecast. If we look at more specifics, we could expect some cloud with some towering cumulonimbus with moderate winds coming out from the northwest side. And then things becoming quite hazy with reduced visibility, coming down to as low as 5 kilometers, and then even as low as 1.5 kilometers through the night. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of weather awaits us. Possibly a bit of cloud, bit of thunderstorm activity, or at least, sorry, not thunderstorm, but the towering cumulonimbus. Cloud formations that, of course, are probably better to avoid, or we're probably better off avoiding. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. In fact, we could probably turn on the weather radar, which I forgot to do on the ground. More so because it wasn't really necessary. So we'll go to System 1 and reduce the tilt to 0 so we can look straight out in front of the aircraft. And yeah, as we can see, just looking out ahead of us, some cloud layers are indeed showing up there on the horizon. Ooh, there's a nice big lake there. It's actually quite fantastic, the scenery. I mean, just seeing these rippling mountain ranges. From this altitude, it's pretty cool. I have to say this, let's, is it worth, I was about to say it may be worth taking a little bit of a detour, but it's a bit late for that now because we're only a couple of minutes away from Sierra Yankee Zulu. There you go, about 40 minutes, correction, 40 miles. I think we'll, well, let's make the turn. Nah, let's keep it. It's quite far away. I think just to remain on course, we'll continue to Sierra Yankee Zulu as filed. What was I saying? I think I was about to say that Flight Simulator 2020 is really starting to come into its own here. Initially released with really poor airline options for the sim. You were better off, or at least I personally felt better off, just sticking with low-level VFR flying, which, let's face it, is, I think even now is what this sim is better at, or better known for, and I think it's a welcome change. As someone that personally really enjoys flying VFR and has you know, even in the early days, trying to do it with the Flight Sim 2004 FSX era, you know, obviously no default satellite imagery available to us. So it was really tough to actually find your way or make your way without using the GPS or any of the sort of radio navigation aids that are available to you or might be available to you on the way. I really was looking for a very pure, raw VFR experience when it came to my flying. And unfortunately, it just wasn't available to me or to us back then. X-Plane, or rather, I started getting into X-Plane a few years ago, shortly after I actually upgraded to FSX, ironically. And yeah, it was like I immediately got converted to X-Plane. Not necessarily because of the scenery, I would say more because of the feel of the aircraft. The handling just seemed to be a little bit more authentic. It's just a more immersive flying experience for me personally. And this became especially true when Ortho 4XP, when I discovered Ortho 4XP. And after figuring out how to use it, yeah, it just revolutionized my flight sim experience to the point where I could actually start to fly or do some true VFR flying. But as I think most of us, or at least all of us who have, you know, had experience with Ortho 4XP, unfortunately, even the highest level of detail imagery that you download, and keep in mind, the higher or the more detail you want, obviously the greater the storage you need. And I mean, if you're going to try and cover, you know, the span of, you know, a country's worth of imagery, that's a lot of storage. But yeah, even if you chose the highest level of detail, you know, flying really low and slow, especially when it came to, you know, helicopter flying and you wanted to, you know, do off-field landings, that was still kind of a bummer, you know what I mean? Because the resolution wasn't high enough that you were able to still land in someone's backyard or in some random field, you know, of a wine farm or something, you know. If you tried, you know, it'd be difficult to judge the distance off the ground. So this is, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this is where Flight Simulator 2020 comes in, you know. Being able to, I mean, if I look out the window right now and I see those little fields down there, or maybe not so little fields, but, you know, I could land on those fields. They'd be relatively high definition imagery or tiles over the ground, maybe even some grass, some vegetation. The trees look great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but it's light years ahead of you know, landing on a Ortho 4XP tile. And that's what I mean, like, even if the airport's not even recognized, or a small little airstrip is not even recognized by the flight simulator, if it's a grass strip, chances are it'll be there, and, you know, it'll be there in good enough form that you could actually land on it. And that's, you know, where Flight Simulator 2020 to me, came, into its own. I'm going to try and stop saying, but yeah. Sadly, though, I just keep saying it. Sadly, the airline aspect of the sim was quite lacking for, I would say, quite a while. The fly-by-wire guys did an excellent job with the A320 Neo, I believe it is, and I used their product right up until the Phoenix A320 came out. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the fly-by-wire A320 is very good, and it got me by back when no other airliners were available for the sim. And eventually the Rotate MD-80 came out. I was pretty disappointed with its sounds, but apart from that, decent add-on. If you scavenge around on the internet, you'll find sound pack for the MD-80, as I have. I personally use the one from FT Sim, and that just makes the add-on super immersive. It's just bizarre, at least for me, how much more enjoyable, more immersive an aircraft could be just by improving its sound set. So for me, sounds are really important, but that's a topic for another day, I guess. But back to the, role of Flight Simulator 2020 in at least my flight simulation arsenal. I'd say, yeah, it's definitely gone from a VFR only sim to a more versatile simulator where I could have just as much fun flying VFR as I do IFR. Now that we have a nice, wonderful array of commercial, or rather airline type aircraft to choose from. But that's why it's actually been really difficult for me to go back to X-Plane. I haven't quite converted fully from X-Plane yet. Although I'm not really spending much time in that sim lately, purely because I'm just waiting for X-Plane 12 to officially release as a, fully fleshed out flight simulator. Because there's not a lot of custom airports available, and that's the thing. For me, to fly an X-Plane, I need custom airports. Just going from one default airport to another is just very unfulfilling. When you're not going to have beautiful scenery like this to stare at between your departure and your destination airport, at least you want to be able to look forward to seeing a very detailed, realistic representation of the destination when you eventually arrive there. So until more airports are available for X-Plane 12 and X-Plane 12 becomes more stable a platform, and by stable I just mean, less updates, I'll probably be spending more of my time in Flight Simulator 2020. And I can't, praise it enough as far as just the beauty. And for the most part, FS 2020 has excelled in that aspect alone, I would say. It looks gorgeous, almost better than real life, I think I heard some people saying. You could argue that, the colors are maybe a bit too vibrant, or the lighting isn't quite what it would be like in reality, but as far as flight simulators are concerned, in my opinion, it's 10 out of 10. As far as the looks are concerned, 10 out of 10. I love my sunsets and my sunrises, and the way the overall lighting of the appearance of the simulator assumes when it's like overcast or dusk. I'd say it's the best we've had for flight sims yet. And if they didn't change much as far as the look of the sim was concerned from here on out, I wouldn't be angry. But what does make me angry, and I didn't mean for this stream to turn into a review of Flight Simulator 2020, but what does make me, I would say, frustrated about the sim is just the handling. The handling of the aircraft are terrible. I will say it has improved considerably since the initial release. I would say that the airliners were unflyable in the beginning. You really only could get by, again, my opinion, you really only could get by with the small light aircraft, and even they didn't handle so great. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't know, I feel like the aircraft lack inertia. I feel like the light aircraft in particular, I mean the heavy aircraft also lack that inertia, but I would say that lately the handling of the heavier aircraft have improved, especially that the Phoenix A320, that team has done such a good job with the handling. Like I said, I'm a Boeing guy. I spend most of my time in Boeings, or at least I used to. With Phoenix, with the Phoenix A320, I just can't help but spend most of my time lately in that aircraft. Without this turning into a review of the Phoenix aircraft, all I'm trying to say is that the heavies, they're handling a bit better lately, or a lot better relative to the, or compared to the initial release. But as far as the light aircraft are concerned, I still feel like we're lacking there. Still a little, I don't know, the feel is just too light. Lack of inertia is I guess what I'm saying. I know they're light aircraft, but you know, when you're flying, it almost feels like you're flying an RC model. It's very twitchy and jumpy, and you know, I don't know, actually. That's all I got to say as far as my rant for Flight Simulator, or at least I wouldn't say my rant, my praise. My praise for Flight Simulator. It's come a very long way since the initial release. One could argue they released the game a little bit, or the sim a little bit early. Too early. It's come a long way the last couple of years. And it's very surprising that we've only now started seeing officially default helicopters with the sim. And don't even get me started on how those things handle. Coming from someone that's flown helicopters, like pretty much all of the helicopters available for X-Plane. I've flown helicopters throughout, you know, when they were first a thing in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it was, what, 98? It wasn't 98. Was it 98? Or 2004 when helicopters first came? I can't remember. But the 206 Jet Ranger came into Flight Simulator. I mean, helicopters were just really crappy handling aircraft to begin with. And they never really improved, and they were never really fun for me to fly until I started flying them in X-Plane. Again, the handling better. I wouldn't say anywhere near perfect, or arguably, you know, some aircraft or some helicopters in particular are nowhere near what I would consider them to be, or imagine them to be in reality. I mean, again, I'm not a real pilot, but again, from someone who's flown countless helicopters, countless hours in them. I mean, at one point I was flying just as much helicopters as I did fixed wing aircraft. And then from some real world experience. I mean, I have a few hours in the Robinson R22, so and also a few hours in fixed wing aircraft in reality. So I feel like I have at least an idea of how they should handle. And let's just say I feel like Flight Simulator has a long way to go when it comes to the helicopters. I hope they continue to improve the flight model of the helicopters, because I really enjoy flying them. And again, to refer back to what a wonderful VFR simulator this sim is, it would be such a pity for helicopters to be, unenjoyable, borderline unflyable, when you consider how nice it is to be able to fly almost anywhere in the world and land almost anywhere in the world and have the terrain around you look somewhat realistic. Again, it's not perfect, but considering that the majority of the world is covered in satellite imagery and it's pretty good definition, and how the sim automatically populates the ground with some shrubs and trees and grass, in its own custom tiles. It would, like I said, it'd just be a shame not to be able to enjoy flight simulators in this environment. A lot of which I didn't explain, that it's helicopter flying, and I used to love, and still do, simulating aeromedical missions in the helicopters. I used the WED, the WED scenery editor for X-Plane, to set up car accident scenes all over the city that I used to stay in. I would make liveries of the local HEM services, and I would in X-Plane fly those exact same helicopters and navigate VFR along the ortho imagery to the accident scene, land on the road, which was the only high definition, tile or surface that I could see and land on. And go through all the motions of loading patients onto the helicopter and then literally flying them to a hospital rooftop in the city, or near the city that I stayed at. So looking forward to being able to do that here. Hopefully, I think the Hype group, or High Performance group, I actually just purchased their helicopter today. I still have to set it up. I got the expansion pack also. Both are in discount right now for anyone watching the stream. For the holidays, I'd recommend, if you were thinking about getting it like me, get it now so that you get the package. I think, I've seen them on discount before. They don't really go below the $35 mark. So I'd recommend buying now, taking advantage of that discount. I bought both. Together it's really, really expensive. I just hope it's worth the money. But from what I've seen on YouTube, it looks pretty good. I'm excited to maybe do some streams in the helicopter once I get my controls and everything configured. Anywho, back to the flight at hand here. I see there's a discontinuity I didn't notice earlier that might influence the VNAV planning here, but let's just quickly go from MAH. Yeah, there's that discontinuity. Get rid of it there. Alright, doesn't look like it's done anything serious to the VNAV profile. But there you go. We're about 50 miles off of Vatan. Just before then, we're scheduled for our, or to commence our descent. We've been flying for just over an hour. Might as well get the aircraft ready for the descent and brief our arrival. Let's see if I can bring the widget up here for Navigraph so that you guys can see exactly what it is that I have planned for us. Or have in store for us for the rest of the flight. Alright, this is an old flight, so let's go unload you. New flight from SimBrief. There it is. That's what we'll be flying the arrival to, and we'll be doing the ILS Yankee runway 30. Let's turn this thing off because there we go. So here's our arrival. It will be the Gotmo 1 Zulu arrival, and we're going to be aiming for the ILS approach runway 30. Just because we are basically facing the runway, I'm going to start our descent a little bit early, just so that we don't have to dive for the airport. So one thing I really don't like about the iniBuilds A310 for the simulator is just the extremely slow scrolling rate, or scroll rate. I think we'll keep at 1,700 feet per minute for now. I'm going to clear us down all the way to, let's make it 10,000 feet. I know I didn't put the, I need to put the airfield elevation in. So let's quickly just pause it at 18,000. I don't think you need to see the charts in particular. I'll go through the charts in a second. So the elevation is 65, so it's basically the same as what it was at Dubai, so I don't actually have to touch that. And by that I'm referring to this little window over here, the landing elevation. We're going to about 50 feet, which is close enough. We can confirm that the cabin is starting to depressurize. And we'll keep an eye on the differential and see that it is actually slowly but surely. It's just started to dip below the 8 psi mark there, so the differential is decreasing. Again, we're going to try and we'll go down to 2,000 here. This one we'll set at 10,000. I think a flight attendants a call and tell them that you know, we're going to keep the seatbelt signs on for the remainder of the flight because it is on the turbulent side. I mean, barely. Screw it. We'll phone them and we'll just put an announcement to say that we started our descent, but we turned off the seatbelt signs briefly to allow everyone who need to use the restroom to go to the restroom, as the potential for it to become rather turbulent is still quite high. As we get close to the airport, they'll come back on. After which, obviously, or at which point we would expect everyone to return to the seats, fasten their seatbelts, and prepare themselves for the landing. The like we can increase our rate of descent here. Keep an eye on this airspeed. How do I can't change it? Down to 0.7. We're gonna keep 2,700 about for our descent rate. So at Batan, we're gonna just check our flight plan here. We need to have how much fuel remaining? About 7.8 tons. And we have almost 8.5 tons. So we're doing really good with the fuel schedule here. We did take a nice big shortcut. That's probably why we've got considerably higher amount of fuel on board than anticipated. It's not a bad thing. Right, so just to continue with the briefing here. We're in the Godmo. 1 Zulu arrival, which takes us to this initial approach fix. It's literally just from Godmo direct to the initial approach fix, which will then put us on the ILS approach runway 30. Might as well start setting that up. So we're going to start with the localizer. 109, 9, and 301. 109, course is 301. Final approach altitude is 3,000 feet, so keep that in mind. Our minimum will be 260, or 319, let's say, for the decision altitude. Oh no, but this is going to be, yeah, it's fine. Let's make it the decision height then, at 260. Done. Right. Got that, and the runway elevation is in. Missed approach will just be the climb, it'll be overhead, the VOR, then a right turn, climbing on the radial 124 to rejoin, holding at 4,000. For what? I mean, climbing on the radial 124. Which radial? This one just says turn. It's not very. This one's going over my head a little bit. Anyways. We'll likely just fly a right-hand pattern and set ourselves up again for the ILS approach. Otherwise, if the weather is good, VMC, then I'll just fly a visual approach back to the runway. Yeah, we need to get a little bit lower, faster here. Get that down to 3,000, well, I think of 5,000 for now. Even though I started my descent a little earlier, I'm surprised that right, 1140 is the VOR here. use this as a backup to the ILS should the ILS fail or not capture for some reason or work. And with it, so that's a VOR, it's a radio beacon located at the airport. Okay, we're 70 miles away from that, so we're doing good. We don't have to rush. I don't know why it looks like on the navigation display that we're much further out than... Whoa, hold on. Yeah. How did we pull that off? Okay, we're going way... How did we do that? Alright, we can slow down our descent rate here. Speed, let's keep it at 300. I have other things to do today. It seemed like we were really high for the approach, but now I'm really low. Really low. We'll keep our speed up. Bring this one down to 3,000. Not a good habit, because if I lose track of the aircraft's descent, and there's mountains in the area higher than 3,000, the autopilot will fly us into them. There's a nice, okay, well, there's an airport right in front of us. We're going to continue to follow this arrival. We're not yet at the arrival. Coming up over at Mike Alpha Hotel. Then we get to God mode. Right, so yeah, that's basically the approach. The Godmo, from Godmo straight to the initial approach fix here. I think that means we have to be at 4,000 feet there, max 220 knots, to be at the 10-mile mark at 3,000 so that we can intercept the glide slope. Alright, that information is in. We can maybe just check out the airport chart here for you guys. I have all of this open on another window behind the simulator, but just so you guys can see. We'll be arriving on runway 30. I'm actually going to double check the airport, the weather, but should still favor runway 30. And interesting enough, this one has the QDM as 300, not 301. Anyways, it's offset a little bit, the localizer. But anyways, runway 30. And we're going to turn off probably at Delta or Charlie. We turn off at Charlie. It's a little less harsh on the aircraft. Because it is, I think this, I have a feeling this aircraft might be a bit big for the airport. But it's a nice long runway. So it should be able to handle big aircraft. Because it's a sea level, practically sea level. So I don't know why the runway is so long. Other than that it wants to be able to accept heavy aircraft. And we're going to probably aim for, this is the main terminal building, so anything 1 through 3 we'll look for. And that's pretty much that. Coming up 10,000 feet here, I'm going to tell the aircraft start slowing us down. We're going to assume if there was air traffic control online, I would request for to fly our own speed, so we don't have to comply with the speed restriction that dictates that we have to fly a maximum of 250 knots indicated below 10,000 feet. At least, I think it's 10,000 feet above the ground, I'm not sure. But anyways, that would be 10,000 feet for us today. Why does this thing look so bizarre? It does look a little strange. From Godmo we go there. Oh, that's the, okay. We're just seeing a very crude representation of the missed approach. That's fine, we're still good. That's 10,000 feet. I mean, we don't really want to go that much faster than 250 knots because we are starting to catch up with, you know, the approach here with our altitude. So there's 10,000 feet. We're gonna set the local QNH, which again, need to still check. So let's quickly look up the weather here for this AIW. Yeah. Oh, IAW. I always get it wrong. Oh, IAW. Right, 1017. Set that to about 50 or 60. 1017. Okay, they're all synchronized, so it's 1017, all three of them. Like I said, we've got, slow you down maybe a little bit further, I think. Turn on our landing lights so people can see us outside. We're gonna start telling everyone to take their seats here. Hopefully everyone had a chance to use the restroom. There you go. Northern part of Iran here that I've never been to or seen before. And center is working on C+I center tank is feeding. Slow us down a little bit more. Let me get to 3,000 feet too early. Hope the stream is still working. And you guys can hear me. Okay, outside view. Hopefully, again, if you're wearing headphones, just beware. Ah, not that loud. That's another thing I find quite inconsistent about the iniBuilds A310 for the simulators. The sound is all over the place. It's like super loud 1 minute, and then the next time you check, it's not that loud. Anyways, this is good. There's the Iran Air livery I was talking about. I think we're overhead God mode here. Might have to make our little announcement. Yeah. So double check what's the arrival again. God mode. Zulu. Oh jeez, how do you even pronounce this airport? Ahwaz. Ahwaz? Ahwaz traffic, Iranian 387 is passing Godmo on the 1 Zulu arrival for the Atlas Spread from way 30, descending through 5,500 feet. Ahwaz traffic. I'm sorry if I am butchering the name to anyone that might be from this part of the world. Alright, we can start slowing down a little bit more here. I think we'll go down to 210. I want to make sure we are level before we get to that initial approach fix. We have some time to slow down. Don't really want to use speed brakes if you don't have to. It's a sign that you didn't manage your descent properly. Alright, I'm going to put this at max continuous thrust for now. Actually, let's put it to toga, just so that, just in case I need to do a go around. I think that's the correct setting for it. Alright, we're gonna stop at 3,000 feet here. We're at 4,000. Checking the charts out here again on the other window. Yeah, okay, well, we can probably stop at 4,000. Okay, it's too late. We'll just hang around at 3,000. Alright, I should have probably also just checked out the, like a 5-knot wind correction just because. 30, 40. Okay, we're gonna put, oops, wait. 1 notch of flaps down. That is 1 notch, right? I think so, yeah. 1 notch flaps coming down. And, around at 210 for now. About 20 miles from the airfield. There's something I wanted to do, but I forgot. Oh, the initial reference. What was that MDA again? According to the chart, it's 319. 319. There you go. Final approach, we're just going to activate that right now. Hope the airport loaded in correctly. I love the wing flex on this model. The PMDG, it's way too twitchy. Again, lack of inertia. This wing looks big and heavy the way it just sways out there in the turbulence. Alright, I think it's fair to say that we should probably come back down to 180 knots here. Let me treat this a bit like an A320. We see the airport yet? Must be out there somewhere or there. Again, another thing I like about this simulator, because we're dealing with, let's bring another notch of flaps down here. Because we're dealing with realistic terrain or satellite imagery, yeah, in real life it's not always very easy to see the airport. It blends in with the rest of the terrain. Alright, we're at 180, 15, 15 on the flaps and slats. Gonna start, I'll turn onto the final approach here, onto the intercept angle at least. Seatbelts, everyone else has been warned. We have not had to use the speed brake, so that actually was not too bad a descent. There we go. I'm gonna keep an eye out for the ILS here. I'm going to go to ILS mode for that. I think I'm forgetting something. Anyways, let's see what, I don't know why this checklist gets stuck like this sometimes. So signs, all on, briefings completed, ECAM status, we'll check in a minute. Altimeters are set, the minimums are set, the ignition is as required, and landing elevation is set. Landing checks are next. I'm going to go to VOR/localizer hold. We're going to arm that. So as soon as we are, okay, localizer is alive, and there the aircraft captures it. As soon as the localizer becomes active, the aircraft should start to intercept that. We're 10 miles from the airport, so we're just going to call it. Ahwaz traffic, Iranian 387 is 10 miles final. ILS approach runway 30, Ahwaz traffic. Oh dear. Land, hit land. There we go. Didn't see the glide slope come alive there, but it just came alive. Hopefully we are intercepting it. Nope, it looks like we just missed it. We're gonna have to... Where is it? Did it capture it? Oh, it captured it. Okay. I think. Yeah, I don't know why it did it like that. Okay, gear down just to help it slow down a little bit here. It's a bit of a steep dive. Captured it late. And yeah, 4,000 feet is the missed approach altitude 300 is the QDM for the runway, so that's the runway heading. So we are ready for the go around should it be required. 137 is the approach speed, so let's just put it at 140 for now. Next notch flaps can come down. There we go. We've armed the spoilers, and we can go ahead and arm the brakes. Put them on low for now. I'll take over manually if I have to. The idea is you want to be stable by the time you reach. So the last bit of flaps coming down here. Want to be stable by the 1,000 foot AGL mark. Yeah, the flap sounds are also kind of cool. I enjoy that in this aircraft. Because you can hear them decelerating, which is pretty cool. Alright. So gear down, 3 green, flaps are down. The spoilers and the auto brakes have been armed. We're going to go ahead and turn on our nose wheel lights here and turn off lights. This is sort of to remind us that we are clearing ourselves for the landing. I didn't hear any other air traffic online right now. Let's turn to the rows here, the arc rather. And yeah, I don't see any text announcements for this part of the world, and we are 1228 over here. So yeah, we're good to go. I don't know if this thing calls out the 1,000 mark, but we did reach 1,000. I didn't hear anything. Let's start slowly but surely taking over here from the autopilot. So I'm going to take over from the auto throttle, and we're going to disengage the autopilot. Sorry about that. It's just required for my flight controls. Alright, so now I'm flying the aircraft. I have the auto throttle under my, well, not the auto throttle, I have the throttles with thrust levers under my control. Okay, a little bit fast, a little bit low, so I'm going to bleed off that speed by pitching up. Alright, there we go. Coming back on the throttle a little bit, or the thrust lever a little bit, because we are a bit fast. Alright, getting a bit low, but we're good, we're good. Still on speed. We need to be at 137 as a VREF. There we're pretty much there. 100. Getting a bit slow. 50. Bit power. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5. And we're down. Not bad. Watch the nose wheel. Okay, reversers are engaged. We're only going to do idle reverse. You can see the reverse indications there. No need for full reverse. And we're going to stow the reversers. And disengage the auto brakes. And that, my friends, is that. What a cool little airport. As mentioned, the terminal's pretty much at the end of the runway. There's a high-speed like exit that we'll aim for. Just because we are so close to the terminal, I'm going to actually start by cleaning up the aircraft. Turn off our weather radar here if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Now we're going to start the APU. Brake fans. Turn them on. I'm not sure why the brake fan or why the wheels got so hot. Okay, we're going to start slowing down here. APU can start coming on. I want to just reset the trim. Ahwaz traffic Iranian 387, vacating runway 30 on Alpha, continuing to the main apron. Ahwaz traffic. Turn off our transponder. Turn off the other bright lights that we don't need. APU just came online. Tune into the APU bleed. Let's see. Probably should have taken this one. It seems a bit more suitable for large aircraft. Let's try and, yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to try and aim for this guy. We missed it a bit. Turn off the other lights that we don't need. We'll see if we can recover this parking effort. Gonna bring up the power on engine number 2 there a little bit, so that'll give us a bit of a push. And then engine 1. Then the co-pilot is looking out for us here. Leave it there. Brakes on, and we can turn off the engines. 1 and 2 coming off. The click spots in this thing also suck. Alright, N2 slow enough that we can turn off the beacon lights. And that, my friends, is that. Welcome to, I think it's pronounced Ahwaz, in Iran. Might take up a little helicopter or something and do some flying. And apparently there's some bridges or something that you should be able to see here. But that will have to come at another day. It doesn't seem to recognize this as a parking, so we're going to have to leave it at that. Thanks again to everyone that, or anyone that might have been joining me for the stream. I do appreciate you spending some time with me today. Hopefully in the coming days I'll be able to do some more streams. Until then, it will have to be a goodbye and see you soon. Ciao.